Welcome back to another 2020 Retroarch tutorial. Today we are focusing on PSP emulation within Retroarch through the Ppsspp core. So let's get started. The first thing you are going to need is Retroarch, so if you don't already have it, go ahead and go to retroarch.com. You'll be brought to this beautiful main homepage here. Click on this download tab up here. Scroll about midway down near the bottom here, and you'll see a listing for nightly builds, so go ahead and click on that. Now, this tutorial is for PC users. If you're trying to use Retroarch on a Switch, Android, whatever, I'm not covering those platforms specifically. The steps I am outlining in this video might work for them, but I have no idea because I do not use those platforms, so I don't know if the same steps apply. So again, this is for PCs. So anyway, go ahead and click on Windows, x86 64 for 64-bit processors. Scroll on down to the very bottom here, and there are two options you can download. So if you want to do things manually, you can click on the retroarch.7zip, which is my preferred method, or you could just go ahead and download this easy setup installer that will automatically extract things for you. But anyway, I'm going to go ahead and click on that. And if for whatever reason you extract this and try to run it and it doesn't work, you just need to download this redistributable zip up here and run these, and that'll fix that right up for you. Anyway, once downloaded, go ahead and get Retroarch extracted using 7-zip. If you don't have it, go download it. It's awesome. Once Retroarch is extracted, go ahead and make sure your Retroarch folder is where you want it to be before you launch the program, because once you run Retroarch for the first time, it defaults all directories into itself. So if you have it on your desktop, you need to leave it on your desktop. So just place it where you want it the first time before running it to save yourself a headache and having to delete config files. Anyways, if that ends up happening, you end up moving it later on. I'll just show you real quick what you could do. You just close out of that and it creates a Retroarch config file. So you can go ahead and delete that to start from scratch. Anyways, go ahead and open up Retroarch. And I'm really loving the new Switch-inspired main menu. It just looks a lot more simple and clean while not losing any functionality. It's nice. Anyway, if you go ahead and press F on your keyboard, you will be able to full screen this this menu here. This window, I mean. From here, we are going to download the PSP core, Ppsspp. So go to Online Updater, Core Updater, and you can either scroll down using your wheel mouse or you can press right on your keyboard. And we're going to go down here to Sony, and we're going to download Sony PlayStation Portable, Ppsspp. Once that's done, go ahead and back out using the backspace or right click. Now from here, there is a bit of setup needed to get PSP games to work correctly. You can start playing some PSP games perfectly fine just by downloading the core, and I will give you a quick example here. So go to load content. I'm going to go to my desktop here. PSP games. So I have a couple PSP games. I don't have the most PSP games, but anyway, there are some games you can start playing just fine right off the bat. So for example, Final Fantasy Tactics is a game that works right off the bat. It has its own text files and everything that it needs to run, but anything built to utilize the PSP's built-in text input will not work with just the basic core downloaded. And let's give you a quick example of that. So in Star Wars Battlefront Elite Squadron, you need to input a profile name. So when you try to do that, nothing comes up. It doesn't have the correct files needed to do text input utilizing the PSP's built-in functions. So I'm going to go ahead and close out of Retroarch real quick. And we are going to need to download the Ppsspp 1.9 source code. So just go ahead and click on the video description to pull this page right up. Anyways, once you have that, I'm going to go ahead and minimize that real quick. We got to get this extracted. So once again, I'm going to use 7-zip. Just pull it right out. Going to open this up. Let's move that over here. Pull back up the Retroarch folder. So we're going to need to scroll up here. Go to the system folder. Create a new folder. Name it Ppsspp. Go ahead and go in there. Now in our Ppsspp 1.9 source code, we're going to need the asset folder. Go ahead and select all this stuff and just drag it right on in. And then you are good to go. So let's go ahead and load back up Retroarch here. Gonna go ahead and load back up into Star Wars Battlefront. So now when I click on the text entry, we have everything showing up exactly as it's supposed to. Now, if you don't like the replacement fonts that Ppsspp uses, you can dump your original PSP fonts using a hacked Vita or a hacked PSP, your preference if you want that or not. I will make a video about that sometime down the road to give you a better example of how to do it. And that is it as far as getting PSP emulation up and running in Retroarch. No hard to come by BIOS files needed. You do still need a couple of files, but at least they are very easy to find. But for those of you just wanting to get set up and running, and be done with it, there you go. That is it. That's all you need out of this video. For those of you wanting to see a couple of extra life hacks or settings that you can adjust within the emulator, go ahead and stick around. We'll jump into those right now. Now, the first thing I'm going to go over is how to make a playlist for all of your PSP games, because honestly, going through the load content menu sucks. It's not fun. Don't enjoy it at all. So first thing we're going to do down here is click on Show Desktop Menu. That will bring up this wonderful menu here. So we are going to make a new playlist. So over in this white space, go ahead and click New Playlist. We're going to name it Sony _space Play Station. Make sure that S is capitalized, everybody. Portable. Now that gives us a nice PSP little icon over here. Very nice, I like it. Then we're gonna go ahead and click over here and add files. Now again, my stuff is all on the desktop for demonstration purposes, so wherever you store your game folder, that is where you're gonna be directing the search to. So I'm gonna go ahead and add in my games, core, Ppsspp, database, PlayStation Portable, done. And then repeat for every game you have. Once you have that done, you can right click on these files and try to download thumbnails for them, but if you don't have them named properly, chances are it won't pull anything up. So as you can see, my Ace Combat isn't named right, so it didn't download a single thing here. So what you could do is try to add a region code at the end of this. And typically that fixes it, but it just really does not like the way I have this game named. Again, it's looking for very specific naming conventions here. Anyways, if that ends up happening to you, you could download your own box arts. I like to go to GameFAQs where users have uploaded some pretty high-res screenshots of these game boxes. Just go ahead and save the image to your desktop or wherever the frick you want. And then you could just go ahead and select the game and then just drag the art onto it. And there you go. Now, whenever you click on that game, a nice box art will show up. To get this to show up in Retroarch, go ahead and close down Retroarch and restart it. And now there will be a nice PSP playlist here, and all the games will have nice little UMD icons, and it looks really freaking sweet. And now when I scroll down to Final Fantasy Tactics, it'll also have the box art over on the right-hand side. And then, of course, you could just go ahead and press Enter on your keyboard or A on a controller if you have one plugged in. The nice thing about Retroarch is if you have controllers and just plug them in, it should automatically configure them to work. If not, you can just go over here to Settings, Input, and you can change the bindings. Select your controller here and then change the bindings if it doesn't work natively. So go ahead and load up Final Fantasy Tactics here. But now let's go ahead and go over some of the core options available within the Ppsspp emulator. Once again, I'm not going to go over what every single little option does anymore. It's just kind of a waste of everyone's time, really. There's only a few things you're really going to need to mess with, so we're just going to go over those. Anyways, click on Options. Now, the first thing is rendering mode. So for this, you're going to want to leave this on buffered. That way, every effect from the game is being rendered correctly. If for whatever reason your computer is too slow to work with buffered, you can try the non-buffered method, but that usually results in a black screen for a lot of things. You'll have to restart the emulator and maybe picture will come back. For me, I never get it to work with non-buffered, but next up is internal resolution. This is pretty self-explanatory. It changes the rendering resolution of your PSP games. So, I mean, if you have a 1080p screen, you can set that to 1080 or, 4K, go up to 4K. But, uh-oh, look at those weird graphical glitches upscaling is giving me. That's no good. Well, easy fix. Go down to texture filtering here. Change it to nearest. Fixes that right up. Then if you like to upscale, you can also change the way that textures are scaled and what type of scaling it uses. I don't mess with this a whole lot. I don't care for it personally, but go ahead and give it a shot, see what you think. And then you can also help filtering those textures by using anisotropic filtering, of course. Now there can be other graphical glitches that pop up from upresing your PSP games, and so you could try turning on the texture deposterize to help clear some of those up as well. But other than that, yeah, I really don't mess with too many things here. Like, default works well on most of my machines. So, I mean, if you have a slower graphics card, you could try enabling threading, but I haven't really ever needed that, even at 4K resolutions on PSP games. For slower GPUs, you can also turn off the block transfer GPU hack here. So this tries to emulate functions of a PSP that aren't available on actual PCs. So it can be more demanding. If you have a weaker GPU, just go ahead and turn that off. You'll lose some graphical effects, but at least the games will run at full speed, right? Good trade-off, yeah? The last thing I want to go over real quick actually isn't in Retroarch. It's going to be outside of it. So if we go ahead and minimize that real quick. If you want to install any DLCs into Retroarch, go ahead and click on the saves folder here, go into PSP, and we are going to make a new folder called Game. And this is where you will put any PSP DLCs that you wish to install. I don't personally have any, but yeah, right here's where they go if you do. And that is it when it comes to setting up PSP emulation within Retroarch using Ppsspp. Very straightforward, not too complicated, and it lets you play a variety of really good games, just like Crisis Core Final Fantasy VII here. Now, if you have any questions, go ahead and ask me in the comments. I will do my best to try to help you out. But anyways, thank you for watching this tutorial. Again, any questions, I will do my best. But I'm going to enjoy some PSP gaming now, so until next time, stay awesome, and we will see you all back next video.